Your personal brand, it's already speaking. The question is whether it's actually telling the story that you want the world to know. In a world that notices everything, intentional branding, it's not optional. It's leadership. Come on, let's dive into this great conversation. Welcome back to Transformation Station, the podcast where leaders grow with clarity, lead with purpose, and transform from the inside out. I'm your host, Adrienne Benson, and today we're diving into a topic that impacts every leader, professional, and entrepreneur. We're talking about personal branding. I already know from my own experience that personal branding is not about self-promotion or polish. It's about alignment. And today, joining me for this powerful conversation is someone who knows what it takes to lead boldly and authentically in complex spaces. I can't wait for you to meet her. Now, as this podcast is inspiring you, I want to share some really amazing news with you. Are you ready? Oh, yeah, I know you are. Guess what? Because of your amazing contributions to this community, we have moved past 3,200 downloads. Come on, that's right. That's right. Go ahead and give yourselves a round of applause. But guess what? We're not stopping there. We're going to keep on going to get Transformation Station literally around the world. And so I want to invite you. We're in season 3. If by any chance you may have missed even one episode of season 1 or season 2, I want to invite you to go back and get caught up. And don't be selfish. Make sure that you don't keep these wonderful episodes, weekly episodes, to yourself, but make sure that you share with someone else. All right. So I want to tell you about our guest, Victoria. She is an award-winning executive leader, #1 best-selling author, in-demand professional speaker, a corporate executive, board director, entrepreneur, #1 social seller, public brand worldwide per LinkedIn for her Fortune 500 employers. She is a woman who has overcome adversity and trauma at an early age to build her resilience. This trait has remained with her throughout her life and has helped Victoria to excel as a corporate executive, mentor, and leader. Transformation Station, Victoria, we're so excited that you're here with us today. Welcome to Transformation Station Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I really am and have been looking forward to this conversation for a while because as I was contemplating having this conversation with you, I was thinking about how important it is for us as leaders to have visibility with intentionality. I have learned for myself in over 2 decades of leadership, I've learned and I'm learning how important your brand is and how important it is in not just like the big moments, but how important it is in what we would deem to be the small moments, the everyday moments, right? So I know that I have this question, and I'm quite sure that many of our leaders have this question. So I want to start off with this question. In your view, Victoria, what's the difference between personal branding and self-promotion?
That's a good question. So personal branding for me is, the art of storytelling. Who are you as a human? I find many people focus on only one sliver of what I believe is part of your personal brand, and that's what you do and who you do it for. Your eminence, if you will, credibility and subject matter expertise. Whereas self-promotion becomes less around the connecting the storytelling of who you are with promoting something for someone to buy rather than connecting with you as a human. And you can be self-promotional, but by being public about who you are as that human. And hopefully that will lead to the outcomes or the goals you're, hoping for, whether that's a new job, it's selling into new clients. If you're a coach, finding, people to work with, etc.
Yeah, this right here often is a really big question because I think on the very basic level, when people hear branding, they do think I have to self-promote me. And many times people are uncomfortable with that, right? But and correct me if I'm wrong, if I hear you in my mind, I'm thinking, if I hear you correctly, self-promotion is about focusing on me and what I've done, how great I am, my successes. Personal branding is focusing on here's what I stand for, here's how I think, here's how I serve. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is. It's about a strong personal brand brings connection, right? That, to others. I learned a long time ago, as I stepped out of a business to consumer environment into a business to business, and all of a sudden I was leading sales and marketing teams. What I knew all along, but I needed to instill for myself and my teams: people do business with people they like and they trust. And so personal branding is about showing the human side, the authenticity, which is that word can be abused, but how do you build trust with people and connection with people versus promoting what you do? In this case, you're promoting who you are in doing what you do.
So we're looking at building trust. Here in Transformation Station, we always give our leaders an opportunity to take a moment to kind of pause and do some assessment. And so to all of our leaders listening and watching right now, as you're listening to Victoria give us this masterclass on a personal branding, I invite you to really stop and take some notes, right? Because for me right now, one of the concepts that I'm reflecting on is what you just said, as far as we're talking about building trust, right? Building trust. And so, to all of our leaders, how through your branding for your company, your team, your organization, for you as a leader, how can you add value and how are you able to build trust? So I want to ask you this. Are there misconceptions that leaders have about what it takes to build a brand?
Absolutely. And part of the reason I spend so much time talking about it, not only with my own organization and the people I coach, it's because I see that there are gaps and people are focused on one thing and one thing alone for the most part, which I mentioned here already, which is the what you do and who you do it for. And so for me, I spread the word broadly that I believe that there's 4 components to a successful personal brand. The first is what we can call eminence, the expertise you have, the education and work experience. So that is the what you do, where you've gained skills and experience doing it, whether it be in multiple countries, in different types of companies, industries. That's the one that people anchor on. Yes, that's important. And yes, you need to learn to tell good stories about it. And that's where I see people stop. That's the misconception. We are more than our job title and the companies who pay us to do that. The other pieces of it is the what makes you unique. So what's the storytelling? You talked about in my intro around my resilience, around the multitude. I refer to myself as a multi-potentialite. I do many, many different things beyond being a corporate executive. And there's things that move me. I have, values and passions towards that I get involved in as well. So that's the storytelling. What makes you you? The third part is what makes you different than others who do what you do. We build a personal brand with a goal or objective in mind. As I said, whether that's to get hired, whether it's to get new sales. So what if it's to get hired or if it's to sell to a new client, then why would they choose you over someone else? Right? So that and then the last part is legacy. What do you want to be known for? When I die, I don't want them talking purely about my success in business, that I've been a part of more than 40 mergers and acquisitions at this point in my career. I want them talking about who I was as a human, that I left the workplace, the community, and the world a better place when I leave it than when I came in. And that is about who I am as a human, as a leader, as a parent, as a partner, all of those things. And so that's the misconception. They think it's only that first piece, when really it needs to be about all of those.
So important. To those of you who are listening and watching, I want to invite you to share with us in the chat right now. What is resonating with you? in this conversation that we're having, and what is coming up for you as something either that you need to let go of or that you need to adopt when it comes to branding. So, we were preparing for this, one of the misconceptions that I thought about was this one here. Branding means being self-promotional or boastful, right? And you talked to us about that a few moments ago. Another one that I thought about was this one, and I really want to hear your thoughts. Branding is only for entrepreneurs or influencers. Many leaders think branding is optional if they're not selling something. Talk to us about that,
Oh,
please.
you are right. I cannot tell you how many colleagues over the years I've said, you need to think about it as you are the CEO of brand you. You
Mm,
do not need to be in a sales role to be
mercy.
focused on putting yourself in the driver's seat. If you're
Mm,
not creating the narrative around who brand you is, someone's
mm,
going to do it on your behalf. So take
mm,
control of that. I say internally, people when if they're in an internal corporate function role,
mm,
finance, HR, or if you're in a delivery role and not necessarily client facing, I'll say
mm,
good delivery sells, right? So
mm,
we are all a part of making our organizations and our customers successful, delivering on their behalf.
mhm,
But think about it also, be selfish in terms of being the CEO of brand you. You should be building a brand not just to sell a product or a service. You are selling you as a human, whether
mm,
that's because you want to seek out a new mentor
mm,
within or outside of your organization. Maybe you are looking for a new role. You
mhm,
need to build the brand and the narrative around who you are and what you stand for. So
mm,
take it much more personally than the way you expressed it. Many think that it needs to be an influencer or for sales perspective. No, 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 no. Think about it
mm,
being about being selfish and putting yourself squarely in the driver's seat.
mhm. I love that. I love that 1000%. Another one that I thought about was this one here. If I do good work, people will automatically notice. Talk to us. Talk to us.
Mm. I, Early in my career, I thought the same thing. I just had to perform well. I'm like, I'm going to get promoted, and people are going to. And so, yes, I will say I attribute my career success to a number of things, and one of them is strong performance. But
Mhm,
my brand has been another one of those components as well. People change and move along. I think there was one company I worked at. I think over the course of 18 months, I had 4 different leaders were
wow.
with me long enough to see, how I delivered necessarily in that environment. And or if you want to make a change, right? I see
Mm,
many people who've gone. I've spent a lot of my career in professional services, and so I've seen people who come from internal roles who want to move to be client facing. Well,
mhm,
we don't know anything about your performance in that context. So
mhm,
I need to know more. And there's a fine line between there's a humility around the self-promotion piece, that you've mentioned, but
mhm,
also making it known who you are. I would choose to hire people that might only have 7 out of the 10 criteria that I'm hiring for. And the
mhm,
rest is going to be based upon what do I know they are as a human? Am I going to enjoy working with them? Do they share the same kind of values that I have?
mhm.
I won't know that if all you focus on is delivering
Mercy.
myopically through the way in which your current role measures you.
Mm. Yeah, that's serious right there, because I think a lot of times we get hung up on mission and metrics, right? On just the delivery, but we don't stop to really full circle take into accountability, how we communicate, how we show up on a daily basis, that consistency or reliability, which absolutely, factors into a brand. I was thinking the other day that, so, sometimes I get a little nervous about shopping online because sometimes you see something that looks absolutely wonderful in the picture, and when you get it in the mail you're like, what is this, but one day I was online, I was looking, the brand seemed to be like absolutely amazing, I'm looking through the reviews, and when the product actually came I was absolutely just like, oh my gosh, throw this in the trash right now, right? And so for me, that was to me, that was a tarnish on the image that they put out there. And I brought that up just in terms of, for us as leaders, many times we are taught that we have to have this persona of being strong, of being perfect, of being all put together. And people don't see the human side like you're talking about. They don't see the human side. And so they just simply connect with that perfect picture, which doesn't last, right? As long as it would, if, as a leader, if we are allowing who we are as a person to collaborate with what service we provide or value that we bring, that can be more long lasting. And I thought about this leadership principle, Victoria, which says your brand isn't what you say about yourself, it's what people trust you to consistently deliver. And that's what I hear you saying to us today. So let me ask you this question, right? Staying on the point of personal brand, can you talk to us about the key elements of why a personal brand is important and how to get started? Talk to us as leaders, especially those of us who are a little bit older. This whole personal brand thing can seem a little intimidating, but why is it important, and how does one get started with that?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit around its importance, around curating the narrative. Now, but it's not about falsehoods. It's not like you just described, Adrienne, around seeing something shiny online and you get it and it's very different. There's an authenticity to creating it. I will tell your listeners and viewers, there's no different version of Victoria that exists online versus IRL, as my young would type to me, in real life. There's no difference. And so it's authentic, but you need to develop that narrative. You need to building a personal brand you're doing it with a goal or objective in mind. And you are never too young or too old to start. I told my oldest when he first came out of college, I'm like, buddy, get on it, build a LinkedIn profile. And he's like, oh, mom, that's only for old people. I'm like, well, dude, that's where old people are hiring you. So whether you're young, regardless of where you're at in the journey, I say to start, build your brand, because it helps you achieve your goals, whatever that goal is. But be clear on what it is, because then that informs your content strategy and how you show up. And so again, is it to get hired, to get promoted, to sell, to clients or customers? What is the goal? And maybe it's multi-pronged. I have a multi-pronged approach, right? I'm in business and I'm a public speaker. They're different buyers of my services, so to speak, right? So I speak. That's my content strategy, though. Not the brand isn't different. So that's why it's important. And how to get started. Again, I want your listeners to think about you need to tell more than what you do professionally and where you've done it. Think about those 4 components that I messaged. Be very good at telling the eminent story, the experience you have, where you've done it. And by that, it's in many things. It's not just the companies you've done it for. It's embrace the diversity of experience you have. Where have you done it? Have you worked in different countries, et cetera? So get very good at that. The next is, what aspects of you do you want to show to the world? You mentioned my resilience. That is a big part of my why. That drives me to be, I am an A-type personality. I know that's shocking for, the short period of time you've been talking to me and your listeners were watching, but some of the trauma I experienced is developed that resilience, and that's created who I am and how I drive and deliver for my clients. So I tell those stories. And then the third one again is that what makes you different. So the fact that I am radically candid. I'm in the world of professional services and consulting. Far too many consultants tell clients what they believe they want to hear versus what they need to hear. That is not me. That is a differentiator, and that builds trust. And so they'll know that they're going to get that from me. And the last one is legacy. And so for me, that means, again, more than what I do for work, the fact that I'm committed to certain causes. I'm adopted. So I sit on a board of helpusadopt.org. The fact that I'm very committed to, diversity and inclusion. Those are things that I stand for. The fact that I'm really focused around building communities and workplaces, where we feel a sense of belonging. That's what I want to be known for. So I tell your listeners to sit down and craft the stories, the narrative around that holistic brand for yourself. And once you have that, and only once you have that, do you start to think about how and where do I post? How do I bring this to the world?
I love this. This is really good. It's like a masterclass. And again, to all of our listeners and viewers right now, we want to invite you to answer this question for yourself. Why is having a personal brand important for you? Victoria has really shared with us quite a few things. And one word that I hear over and over again is trust. And that is really important. Um, a personal brand is not just about the image, it's about clarity, trust, and consistency. And leaders, those are three things that we're always seeking and striving to get. I have found over the years, Victoria, that, a personal brand, when you understand who you are and are clear on the message that you're putting it and how you serve, it can serve to strengthen your leadership influence, because it goes back to what you're saying about trust, right? When people know that they can trust you, they can trust your brand, then they're more apt to engage, to hold on even when times get tough, because you have a brand that is leaving a legacy, right? We look at McDonald's, you travel all around the world. There's a McDonald's in all these different countries, right? They have a legacy. They have a brand that's consistent, that people trust. Chick-fil-A, some of these others. And I think the same goes for us as well. Because personal branding allows us to shape the experiences, what you talked about, intentionally. And to every leader that's listening right now, I want to invite you to really hone in on that word intentional. We're going to talk a little bit more again about, Victoria will help us again to just look at crafting it and putting it together. And you may be saying to yourself, I don't even know where to begin, but we first want you to just get comfortable with the fact that personal branding is important. And as Victoria says, it's really about you being authentic with yourself and authentic with the world. So let me ask you this question, right? For the leaders that are listening and watching right now, how can leaders craft a personal brand without feeling like they're being inauthentic or self-promotional?
So go back to the 4 foundations, and I have a free framework. It's on my website. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. They can go. It's just start to craft, start to think through ask yourself the questions. And again, how do you want to show up? I would also encourage the leaders listening to find some trusted people. The perception is reality in the eye of the beholder. So, I became an executive at a very early age, and I thought I needed to show up in a very particular way. I was a 24-year-old chief operating officer, the youngest by 2 decades and the only woman. So I thought, oh, well, I can't show emotion. I can't show vulnerability. I need to be all business all the time. And I got a horrible nickname for myself as the Iron Maiden. But that was their perception, their reality for me. And so I needed to ask trusted people, how do I show up? What are you hearing? What do you see? Because we have blind spots. And so as much as, the leaders listening can curate and develop that narrative, I think it's really important to, have a balance, a check with people who you trust to be completely honest with you. And in some cases, you may need to pivot back to what do you want to be known for? I did not want to be known as the Iron Maiden, because that is actually not who Victoria is. My nickname now is the Turtle. I am extremely resilient. I have a tough exterior. I can deal with a lot, but I am soft marshmallow on the inside. But I had to pivot, and I had to work towards that. And you use the word intentional. I use all the time. I talk about strategic intentionality. So tell your listeners, craft the narrative, talk to others who are going to be bold and direct and honest with you, so that you can show up in the way in which you want to be known for.
Totally off script. Do you have any mentors or a coach that you have worked with through the years?
I do not. And what I have instead, Adrienne, is a long list of people whom I've seen in business, whether in leadership or other, that I've decided I want to be nothing like. So I've actually observed deeply to understand what I think works or doesn't work for others. And I've shaped, my style, not my brand, but certainly who I am as a leader based upon that.
I love that. And so to all of our listeners, listen, there's multiple ways to build community. There's multiple ways to grow. Maybe your best way, like Victoria, is to be able to observe others and to be able to see what you can glean from and what you don't want to be like or do. Maybe there is someone that is around you that you can ask questions, people that will be honest and authentic, right? Because as Victoria said, perception is reality. And listen, every day presents a new opportunity to reframe. So, as we turn the corner on this conversation, I'm going to ask you to really sow into our viewers and listeners and just share with us from your experience what's one practical step that we can take this week to begin to shape or strengthen our personal brand, especially if we are feeling unstuck or unclear.
I would say, and I think you said it at one point, Adrian, that this can be uncomfortable for some. So I'm going to encourage your listeners to step into the zone of discomfort. I believe it is in that space when growth and opportunity comes. So this may not feel natural. It may be uncomfortable to share stories, to open the kimono a little bit. But I would encourage your listeners to do that. Take that one bold step. And with that, by the way, there's electronic, I refer to it as electronic courage. You can sit behind the keyboard, much like you talked about shopping online. You can sit behind the keyboard. There's baby steps you can take. So
Yes.
you dip your toe into the water, get a little, comfortable with the discomfort. And over time, it gets a heck of a lot easier.
I love that, one step at a time. This was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. So I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are listeners and viewers that want to reach out to you, Victoria. What's the best way for our listeners and viewers to engage with you, engage with the resources that you have available?
So I have a website, which is victoria-pelletier.com. And I see you've put it up. Thank you. So people wouldn't struggle with the spelling of the last name. And from there, they can get that, by the way, the free framework that I talked about, those 4 steps. They can download the PDF. And if they choose to follow me on other platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram or whatnot, they can do that directly from there.
I love that. To all of our listeners and viewers, you know that we love to support our guests. So you see the link here on the screen. It's also in the description box. I'm going to invite you to reach out to Victoria. Let her know that you have seen, you've heard this particular episode. Let her know what has resonated with you and tap into the resources. She has a capital FREE free framework and more. So please, the community that grows together, learns together, and moves forward together. Victoria, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here on Transformation Station.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, what a powerful conversation with Victoria. This episode reminds us all that personal branding is not about image, it's about impact. And when we as leaders take ownership of our stories, our values, our presence, we don't just stand out, but we build trust and influence that lasts. And I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to invite you to share with me what's one word you want people to associate with your personal brand. Come on, go ahead, put it in a DM, send a comment as you leave a review for Transformation Station Leadership Podcast. So until next time, I'm going to invite you to keep leading with clarity, showing up with purpose, and keep transforming from the inside out.